Hi guys, welcome back to the Forgetful Scholar, and this week we're going to chat about a book. One book. It was published 2025 and is 378 pages. It is The Hexologists, A Tangle in Time, Book 2 by Josiah Bancroft. And if you see on the cover, there are different symbols than the first book. So I find that so much fun. Okay, so this was 5 stars for me. I had a blast reading it. Okay. As the nation's foremost investigators of the paranormal, Ezel and Warren Willoughby have made quite a name for themselves as the Hexologists, detectives of uncanny, the monstrous, and the strange. After a decade of wedded bliss, dozens of fantastical adventures, there's little in the world that can still surprise them. But when a famous artist dies under suspicious circumstances, Ezel finds herself investigating a murder that may not have happened and a crime scene that seems to shift under her feet. The laws that govern magic are breaking down. The mystery will carry the devoted duo to a seedy underworld's enchanted gardens and the subterranean military zoo. That was really interesting. Equipped with Ezel's hexes, Warren's muscle, and an enchanted bag full of magical relics, the Hexologists will have to risk life, limb to unravel the riddle at the heart of a Tangle in Time. So, did I mention how much fun I had with this book? So the first book, we were introduced to Warren and Ezel and they're just so cute. They're such a cute couple. I love them so much. And Ezel, it's definitely grumpy sunshine, but is the grumpy, and Warren is the sunshine. Warren loves people. He's an anxious people pleaser, and Ezel is a lycanthrope. Oh, like, no, what was I gonna say? Lycanthrope. Wait a minute, isn't that a werewolf? Anyway, Ezel hates people. She's not a werewolf, but she hates people. She basically thinks they're dumb, which, fair enough, you know, kind of. And considering how the public perceives her, or at least perceives her in the news articles and stuff, I don't blame her for not really liking people, because we find out in the first book, we kind of find out she was with the police force. She left because she couldn't take it anymore. We find out more about that in this book. There is a reporter that annoys the crap out of her and is always bothering her. He's in this as well. But we also get some of the political cartoons that we didn't get in the first book. And a lot of these political cartoons, horrible depictions of her. So mean, so evil. Like, even today, if this was published about somebody, there'll be an outcry. Be like, what are you doing, you know? The first book, we got introduced to this bag they call Granddad, which was technically her grandfather's, but her father, who was a great world adventurer of the supernatural and the magical relics, sort of like an Indiana Jones, right? He has this treasure trove in this bag, like kind of like Warehouse 13, you know? And like Doctor Who, how the bag is bigger on the inside, and has all these magical things, including a talking dragon that has glasses, and we love him. And him and Warren are like best friends now. So I thought the first book was a crazy ride where it had to do with a murder. And then we find out there is a very dangerous foe in the shadows who's not only magically super powered but also politically connected, and I don't want to give too much away for that because that was such a fun twist and definitely worth reading the first book. Well, I think these books are great, so you should read them anyway. But this one didn't have to do with that foe from the first book. And I'm not the biggest on time travel stuff in books. This kind of sounded like a bit like Groundhog's Day. And although Groundhog's Day is a great movie, you have to admit, reading that, like reading the scene over and over again, just little changes, I was hesitant. I'm happy I read it. Anyway. It was not like that. It was not tedious at all. We find out so much more. We also find out, just a little side note that I really liked, we found out what their first date was, and it's so cute. Apparently their first date, they were picking through the trash to find love letters from a judge to a prosecutor. So not good as that, like the corruption of that, but so cute for them. That was their first date because they're a venturing duo. I love it. Now I will say Paige, okay, so we follow them a night out. And I will say this is closed doors for their romantic entanglements with each other. So in case that's like something that you don't like to read on Page, they are very devoted and very much in love with each other, which is so sweet. And they're also like best friends too, which is, I love that. So it is closed door when it comes to that, but I don't mind that at all. I find it very sweet. They're just so cute. And this book isn't like about, like, sure, their love is a huge part of this book, especially this one, but we don't, you know, I don't know. It's fine. I don't mind it. We follow them on a date night. They go to see this play. And Easel, or Iz, I'm just going to call her Iz. She wants to drop in on, sorry about the construction. Anyway, she wants to drop in on someone who sent her a letter of help. So apparently she gets a lot of letters, people asking for help, saying if this is the right hex, or if this is not the right hex, or someone's trying to destroy my business, you know, things like that. And is sent, you know, oh, here is a hex, you know, to do this hex you have to do this and that, and then left it at that. But something about it just nagged at the back of her brain, right? So she goes to this gallery, which is close to the theater production they just saw, and when they walk in the first time, it is a grotesque, horrible, bloody, non-professional murder, and then all of a sudden, boom, a bomb goes off, and then they're sitting at the play again. And I know what you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be over and over. It isn't. Nothing like that happens. The play is kind of for the reader, I would say, like, an important pillar point to kind of ground us readers on, like, oh, okay, it's happening again. But we only have to be subjected to that 3 times. So if you're like me and you think that would be tedious, it's really not. It's really, really not. And then after the play, after a huge flashlight, and after the play, they go and check on her. And right before Iz goes to the door, she is struck by a huge migraine. Like, she has to go to the hospital, everything, right? And they just go along their day, and they find out and apparently the artist that they were going to look in on ended by herself. Self-inflicted. Which is like, I don't think so. And we find out more about her time with the police. And there's one cop, Boxburn. Ooh, we hate him from the first book, and we hate him even more in this one. And as the story unravels, you just find out more about Boxburn and how he's a piece of shit. See, but the thing is, this author is so good about putting little tidbits of their past adventures, how they met, like things like that in the background, that at first I didn't catch on. But every time someone changes the path, like, because the murder scene was so grotesque, and then when we come back, it's self-inflicted. So obviously the reader knows someone went back in time and did something. Obviously Iz and Warren don't know, but it's interesting, and I clocked it when they were talking about the moon. So every time someone goes back in time and change something, the enemy goes back in time and change something, there is environmental consequences. And not like, because in this world, alchemists have portals to the hell dimension to get coal, and that kind of ruined the environment. It's not quite like that. So in the first book, and I barely caught this, but I'm happy I hyperfixate on tiny little details that don't matter. Anyway, first book, Warren and Iz are strolling under the full moon. You know, nothing different about the moon, right? But in this one, they refer to the moon as the lovers, because apparently the moon is purple and is cut in half. And the moon is cut in half. So they're referred to as the lovers. And, you know, even though first cave depiction shows it as the moon cut in half, but Iz has dreams of the full white moon, you know? And then when another hint that someone went back in time and did something, not only do we read it on the page, but all of a sudden the birds in this world are carnivorous and dangerous. Apparently, like I think they were called the throat ripper robins, snap biting eagles, things like that. Like people, birds kill people. They eat them up. So they have to have like metal helmets, umbrellas with leather and spikes. The weather is telling you whether there are birds in the area, be careful, things like that. So as the book goes on, the changes get more drastic. We find out about the military underground zoo, which is like, dang. We also meet one of Iz's old professors. She was kind of a bitch, but she did give Iz some great advice that helps her later on. Now, I will say, the third act, something happens, and I was like, no, oh my gosh, no. But it's okay, because this is a time travel story. But still, I won't say what it was, but I was like, no. That was my reaction. That was my exact reaction. And I won't say who is behind it. I will say about page 200, I was like, I figured it out, but I was hoping it was a red herring because I didn't want them to be the enemy, right? The underground zoo. So the military has an underground zoo where creatures like blood pixies, I think they were called, exist. And that was an interesting scene, as well as when the first time travel thing happened, they lost their portal into the bag, so they couldn't get to where her father's treasure trove is and their dragon friend, right? They couldn't get to, but so most of the book is trying to fix that. I will say in this book is kind of her powers, kind of her magic abilities seem to get a little higher, like maybe a little upgrade, because her old teacher was like, gave her some good advice. So Iz starts visualizing things that she didn't before and using that to help put more oomph in her hexes. So I don't know, because how the ending was, I don't know if Iz is still going to know how to do that, because that definitely did power her up a bit. And as the books go on, I hope she does get a little power up. I don't want her to be like all powerful, but she has a lot of powerful enemies, so I wouldn't mind if her hexes get a little powerful now and again, right? And man, so I did find it interesting how even though the military in large seems to hate her, they always come to her for help, and the people seem to recognize her from those horrible cartoons, but they seem to be like, oh, you're that hexologist that solves crimes. Like, they don't seem to belittle her at all, right? And maybe that's why one of the reasons she stands so firmly for the working class, because she does, and I love that about her and Warren both. Well, Warren, because her family seems like, in America, I would describe them as upper middle class. I'm not sure how to describe them in British terms, because their class system is a little bit different. Her father was a professor and adventurer, and her mother's a librarian, but obviously they were well off, and Warren, his father, is a butcher, so maybe he's more working class, I love them so much. What was the point of that, me saying that? I know there was a line of thought process, but anyway, they're both very much for the working class. And there was one thing that by the end of this book didn't happen, but like stuck with me, right? So she is finally talked into doing a salon, and a salon is where rich people get together and just like, and people kind of like a convention, people that are really high up in their trade. For it's hexology. They have a medium that is called medium soft cheese. And the reporter she hates is the moderator. I don't know why I always have such trouble with that word. Anyway, and there's like an audience, right? So and I can't get this scene out of my head. I'm like, what does it mean? So the medium that is positive is a fake, because in the first book, you find out what happens with the dead and how they communicate with the living, and it is very much not like how this medium says, right? So is like, no, she's a fraud. But the medium said something about saying like, oh, I could contact your father right now, and that sets her off. Like, don't mention her dad. She's got daddy issues. Don't mention it. You know, he was this great adventurer, but he was a shit father, right? He was never there. He loved her in his own way, but he was never there. So that doesn't really, you could love your child all you want, but if you don't show up for like her birthday, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, sorry. I felt a little, I feel so bad for little Easel, little Iz. Anyway, the medium says, oh, I could contact your father right now. And is like, yeah, go ahead, try it, right? What did he give me for my 11th birthday? And the medium was correct, but then she says that her father says, don't trust Mr. Zhang, he's not what you think, don't trust him. Which I thought was interesting. And it turns out the medium, so we don't know if the medium is real or not. We don't know if there is a part of the paranormal that hasn't been really dived into, you know, if this is a new thing for this world, we don't know. But the fact is that this medium knew things she shouldn't have, but also apparently was a student of her father's for a while. So it's such a murky ground, right? Especially at the end, we get so Mr. Zhang is like this boogeyman for Iz, because every time he would put a notice in the newspaper, that's how her dad and Mr. Zhang communicated. Her father would go on an adventure. So she always hated him, right? Mr. Zhang, she hated him. And it was sort of like a boogeyman in her childhood. So how would this random medium know about Mr. Zhang? Also, I was thinking, well, he did put his messages in the newspaper. He didn't sign his name. He had like a little symbol for his name. So, okay, she knew the name, which is weird, right? So it's such an interesting, murky, gray spot in this book that every detail matters, that I'm like, ooh, what does it mean, right? Especially at the end where we find out who Mr. Zhang is. So it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't, so, and this isn't a spoiler, because in the first book they talked about how doesn't want to look into the mystery of father disappearing. He's dead. Okay, you know, maybe he's not. It's kind of a gray area for her. The mom doesn't think he's dead, but that could be like wishful thinking. So there's always kind of a thing, is her father dead? Is he not, right? So in this book, again, that question comes up at the end, very end. So it might have something to do with the next book. I didn't check because this has a sample for the third book. I don't like to do that. I just, you know, I don't like to do that. I just wanna, yeah. If I'm gonna read that book, I just wanna read the book. Anyway, the big question at the end of this, is her father dead? And what did the reader remembers what the medium says, right? So did someone impersonate Mr. Zhang to like kidnap him, or maybe not? Is he really dead? Like, it's so fascinating, and I'm so invested in, is her father dead? Is he not? Did someone impersonate Mr. Zhang? Did they not? Because it's no way it's actually, like, when he was like, oh, Mr. Zhang's not who you think, still, that doesn't make any sense with the conclusion of who Mr. Zhang really is, right? So I think that is so interesting, and I can't wait to read about it in the next one. Did I mention this was 5 stars? Did I mention? I just had so much fun, and the ending was so satisfying. And yes, like I said, there is 3 times that they see this play, but the last time when they're sitting at the play, it's a huge relief that they are, right? So I think I gave a good review synopsis without giving any important stuff away. I am so enjoying the series. I can't wait to the next one, and I'm gonna go. I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.